Hey guys, what's happening? Stephen Howell here, and I have my good friend Isaiah Ford, and he is a past student of mine. And so we have a little content piece here for you guys today, just kind of impromptu, and I'm going to go ahead and upload this onto the YouTube channel. And so we've been getting a lot of questions about, case studies, and I want to give you guys a real world example of someone who's out there making things happen and who just crushed out a really good wholesale deal and who's doing some awesome things on social media. So I know there's a lot of good value, a lot of good content here for you today. Like I said, my good friend Isaiah is out in California. He is actually running a full-time business that has nothing to do with real estate. Got interested into the real estate game and the real estate world and has been just absolutely crushing it. So I want to let him kind of tell his story a little bit. And he recently just closed out his first deal. And what I want to do is kind of ask him some questions about how did you get this deal? What were some problems that you went through? What type of marketing did you do? How did you bring in your buyer? And what that kind of looked like. And then he has some other deals in the pipeline and some cool stuff going on. So we really honestly, we just hopped on a couple minutes ago. We don't have, some crazy script or anything like that. I figured the best thing that can provide the most value is just to kind of hop on and talk and kind of share this with you guys. So definitely be sure to comment below when you're watching this video and let us know what you think of this. And I'll have his socials in the description and how you can follow Isaiah. And so without further ado, as you can see here, Isaiah is on the screen. So Isaiah, man, tell the people here on YouTube and whoever's watching this video a little bit about yourself, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me on here too. I'm really excited to kind of share my story. So my name is Isaiah Ford. Some people, when you guys follow me, I go by Isaiah the Barber on Instagram and YouTube. But kind of just to give a little bit of backstory of kind of how I met with Steve. I was interested in real estate at the time. I was a full-time barber. Kind of just reading through some great personal development books that kind of intrigued me, and I kind of wanted to learn about ways that I can create wealth or just an income that is beyond just self-employment. And I came across a couple of the blueprint on YouTube. They had you had the 3-step to wholesaling, which is a great video, by the way. And I watched the video, and I watched a whole bunch of different guys, different mentors, guys that in the real estate game, and came across Steve's, signed up for the blueprint, and kind of for the first couple of months it was there's the struggles in everything that you're trying to learn. It was definitely something that I was trying to learn, at the same time managing time, at the same time battling fears, and it's a complete full process trying to learn anything that's new. And so kind of like how I came across my first deal, it took me a lot longer than I expected. There's I'm gonna put everything out there in front of you guys so that you guys can really learn from some of my mistakes or some of the, the struggles that I went through. But we was working with Steve for maybe about 6 months before I got my first deal, and some of the things that kind of took a while was, I think, and for anybody who's watching this, is sometimes laying the foundation right the first time is what can get you in order to go faster. So they always have the philosophy of if you want to go fast, go slow. Go as slow as possible, lay each brick down as perfectly as possible. And I think through those times I was being inconsistent. I was doing the certain steps. I was doing, maybe 4 out of 5 of the steps instead of all of the steps. Mm-hmm. And once I fully just locked in, and just really engaged myself with doing all the things, mailing out mailing out to all the attorneys, mailing out to all the executors, giving everybody a phone call, giving everybody a follow-up phone call. 2 weeks later, giving everybody, another follow-up phone call, and just really getting down to the system is when I started to see results. They always say if you're trying to see results, better results in the things that are going on around you, you need to change the things that are going on within you. And so, I started to change the things that were going on within the business, within the structure, following the system that Stephen was, put out for us, as far as the blueprint. And it was actually a referral, um, seller. It was somebody who was through a probate, and I followed up with her multiple times.
Okay.
I kissed her maybe like 2 or 3 months of just engaging with her,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually she ended up not wanting to sell. Um, but I put it in a position to where I was, working with her, and I was, asking, building rapport. I was asking a lot of great questions. I was being a respectable person. I was, engaging them. I was building their motivation. I was
Mm-hmm.
doing everything right. And she actually was like, you know what, I'm thinking I'm actually just going to keep my house. And in some shape or form, that kind of kind of like where I was like, man, I thought this was going to be something that was something I could really work with. But I kept moving forward, and I ended up getting a call from them a month later saying that her brother actually needs to sell a property, and he needs to sell it fast. And it came in with almost like, it was like I've never seen such a motivated seller like this before. It was like,
That's awesome.
when you see a motivated seller, you're like, when Stephen, when you describe a motivated seller, you can finally know what they actually, the characteristics, what financial things are going through, what type of stress they're going through.
Uh-huh.
And from there, I was able to just walk them through the process, close up the deal, and I ended up finding a buyer for the deal. I believe through it was through a Craigslist ad.
Okay.
So I did my Craigslist ads. I did there's like a real estate group on Facebook in Sacramento.
Mm-hmm.
So I posted that one on there, and then I also did mailing, and then I did the bandit signs in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the four strategies for that one, and I ended up getting a lot of phone calls afterwards. And that's kind of how I kind of built some of my buyers list as well for more deals to come. Is just by marketing it out to so many people that when it does close, you can say, look, I can add you to the buyers list, and we closed with them, and it was actually somebody who had private funding, but it was somebody who was credible to somebody one of it was actually a family friend who told me that this person was very credible in
Yeah.
the industry. So I was like, okay, I can do a private funding, and then we just did the closing up through the title, and it closed up in about 7 days. I want to say,
Okay.
and it worked. Through that whole process, it was very nerve wracking. It was like, you bring up all these type of ideas in your head of what could go wrong sometimes, and so sometimes through that process you just gotta be calm and just let everything happen, and just have faith with what you're doing and the work that you put in. But it was a good experience because I was able to see almost every step of just like everything. I saw what it's like to try to get a seller to sign, what I mean, within a short period of time.
Right.
Because sometimes, some of these people probably have never really sold a house before,
Mm-hmm.
especially through this untraditional route. So you kind of have to, spoon feed in a way and help them, sell their house in an untraditional route. Most of them are used to dealing with the realtor, So it was almost like I had to deal with that. There was the struggle of finding a buyer at first, because I actually had it on Craigslist for like 3 or 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
It's whole like 3 or 4 days was just a stressful 3 or 4 days, because I'm like, I'm not getting what I expected.
Yeah.
But by the third or fourth day, all of a sudden, all these guys are coming in asking for the property. I don't know what it was, but I
Mm-hmm.
guess it was just within that 3 days, it took some time. And I think even, like Steven, we were talking about before this, is when you kind of pinpointed something, there is a struggle of being young, going into real estate. You know, you have those fears of being young. That was probably like the biggest thing, because I started the course when I was 19, turned 20 throughout the process, and just kind of like the struggle of just being young. Sometimes people, when you meet them, they kind of, you know, not look down on you, but they question your moves a lot more, because they see a level of inexperience. And so I had to keep my composure through the whole process. Because I did, you know, when we showed the house a couple of times, I received a lot of questions. And it wasn't that I was receiving a lot of questions that actually mattered. It was more of that they were trying to test my experience level within that process. But I mean, I felt like I was really taught really well through the course. And I think that's the level that I got from the mentoring and from the course, is the fact that I was able to be well knowledgeable in, you know, different areas of the business, to where when I was going into the property, I can say things like, you know, give them details a little bit about the property, give them a little bit of background. You know, kind of like how when we fill out the the email letter to other investors, you can tell them things like when the house was built, you know, the HVAC, all these different things, the foundation. You're able to talk about those things because you know it.
Absolutely.
And they're all things that you kind of taught me in a way that I was able to just take it on. And even just being, you know, young African American, you know, there's a whole bunch of stigmas that you can think of, but it really realized that it's not really about, you know, your outside forces. It's really about just how you feel inside and how you approach things in your perspective within yourself.
Yeah.
And so when I learned to just kind of dive into those things, I was really able to, you know, expand and really get what I want. And now I'm in a position to where, you know, my barber business is important to me, and real estate is important to me too. So it's like I'm learning to just move forward with both.
Absolutely, man. That's super inspiring. And you touched on like a ton of really good things that I definitely want to circle back to. You know, the age, you know, there's a lot of different things that, you know, I've talked with so many people over the years, and it's very common. Like, you know, sometimes we think that we're too young or too old, or there's different things that are going on, dialogue in our own minds, you know, our own things that we're self-conscious about that, you know, can sometimes get the better of us. And we'll kind of circle back to that. So what Isaiah is talking about here, guys, when he started with me, a few months after getting rolling, you know, he got this deal, and this was it ended up being a $17,500 wholesale deal, right?
Yeah.
And so on my screen here, we got a little check here, so you guys can see that we're not just making up these numbers. He closed out this July, this past summer, and here's a pic of Isaiah with the Benz there as well. So kudos to you, man. That's absolutely incredible. But yeah, so tell us, man, the first time that you got, when you got this lead, and you, like you mentioned, they started to finally say some things where there's like, okay, there is some motivation here. They actually might want to sell. And then like when you first started to get the deal under contract, what was that like when you finally got this deal under contract and you realized like, man, this is different than some of the other leads maybe I've been working in the past? What was that like for you?
It was a different feeling because I had gotten a deal under contract previously, or I was actually, you know, I had a verbal commit as far as, you know, signing the paperwork and all that with the previous lead that didn't end up going through. And it was almost like how you talk, you know, this cool, calm, and collective of just like, you know, I received it and I was just like, okay, what's the next step? I wasn't like overly excited, and I wasn't like, you know, I was more of just like, okay, what's this next move? And I did that perfectly because I wanted to put myself in a position of just going through the whole process until the end. So I think sometimes you know, when you get some type of achievements or anything like that, you don't always end up following through each step. So I just wanted to lay each brick down perfectly as possible. So I had that mindset when I got it. It was just like, okay, what's the next step? What do I need to communicate with the seller? Okay, now how do I get this contract off me to a buyer?
Yeah.
And so, and it was and I was, you know, working like 60 hours in the shop,
Mm-hmm.
So I only had maybe a couple of hours at night and in the morning to really put things together. So it was almost like I was moving against time, but I also didn't have much time. So it was nerve wracking. It was a struggle, but it was definitely exciting through the process. It was definitely something that I was like, wow, this is everything that everything I was working for. You know,
Absolutely. So
when,
you bring up a couple of really good things, and then what I want to do, if you remember the numbers, I want to kind of ask you like, what was the value of the property? What'd you get it for? What did you sell it for on the back end? That type of thing, and then I have a couple of other questions for you as well that I think
yeah.
will be good.
So I put it in contract for 157 and a half,
Uh huh.
57,500, and then the value of the house was I believe was 300.
Okay.
I believe it was like three. I think it was like 290, 300 at the time. The value of the house went up for throughout the process. So I'm not sure if it was maybe like 280, 290. But then I sold the deal for 175,
Okay.
and the repairs on the property were roughly around 40 to 50, 50,000 in repairs. It was one of the struggles of getting this deal off was the fact that it was a converted bedroom. So it was originally a garage, and they converted it into a bedroom. It needed to be converted back into a bedroom, and that was
Uh-huh.
a difficult thing for me to get off because certain investors were not really interested in the deal because of that. So it was like I was hurdling over the fact of selling something with almost like a bruised leg. You know,
Right.
it was like I'm trying to get something off, but people want a traditional, 3 bedroom, 2 bath with no type of issues with it or anything like that. So when that happened, it was something that I had to work towards. So it ended up being where they have to convert it back to a 2-in-1, and we all know that a 2-in-1, bedroom to bathroom is not really something that everybody is looking for.
Yeah.
And those are certain things that it was kind of difficult, but it was just working, staying focused, and working through the plan.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, so like a lot of times, 2 beds, 1 bath we have to be more conservative in our offer price. And a lot of times people are like, well, those are tough to wholesale. And it's true, we do need to come in more conservative. But some of my bigger deals, some of my $25,000, $30,000, $35,000 deals have been with 2-1. So it's not
Yeah.
always like, there's not always one specific way to go, and that's where it's helpful to be able to talk through the details of a deal. And I remember, just to compliment you, Isaiah, like one thing that you were really awesome at is like you would just be focused on like the next leg of the journey. Like, yeah, there was a million things going on, but I just remember the questions would be about that next specific thing. You were constantly focused on, okay, well, what's the next little thing? And that's, when I look back over the years with some of my most successful students, that's like one of the key things. It's like the ability to focus on like one thing at a time. And another thing I want to touch on is, so I just, while you were talking there, I went ahead and put the numbers up on my screen. So, sometimes people think, well, hey, you're out in California, number one, how can you compete with such a hot market out there? But, one of the things that's kind of trendy is like, even with wholesalers, that you got to get houses for a lot higher under contract. But if it's worth 290 to 300 and you got this deal for 157.5K, that's almost 50 cents on the dollar, which if you told that to, any regular investor, in California, they'd probably say, well, people don't get deals for 50 cents on the dollar here. So I think that's just a powerful lesson that like, and I remember myself like going to investor club meetings and, I was doing $25,000 deals and other wholesalers and other investors are kind of like, shaking their head like, like, man, it's tough out here to get a $3,000 deal. So it's good to get inspiration from people, but if you listen to like what's the norm, like you don't always want to let other people tell you what's possible because, this just goes to show you that you can do some of those things. Yeah. And so kind of on that topic, Isaiah, like what would you say there's going to be a lot of people watching this video, and I'm so grateful that you came out to share your story because I know that it's going to inspire a lot of people. So, I look at your situation and I get asked all the time, Stephen, what's the like 1 or 2 things that you've seen from your successful students versus, somebody who just kind of puts their toes in the water, or maybe they get results, maybe they don't. And I think this is a great example. So I want to kind of flip this around a little bit. And, Isaiah, when you got started, you could have said, well, hey, like, I have a barbershop like business. Like I'm barbering 50 to 60 hours a week. I'm 19 years old. I'm about to turn 20. Like, who's going to take me serious? I'm in California, which is a smoking hot market. Like, how in the world am I ever going to stand out? Like, how in the world am I ever going to compete? So what would you say to the person that, is having some internal doubts? Maybe they think they're too young, they're too old, they work too much, they have, maybe a full-time job, or they think they're in a saturated market. Is there anything specific that, like, you kept telling yourself, or just, what would you say to a person who maybe has some of those doubts?
Yeah, so it's definitely like, the scarcity mentality and being an entrepreneur is definitely one of the hardest things to battle with. And being a barber, I kind of learned some of that from there. I've dealt with that in another industry. So I think the biggest thing is that sometimes it's all mindset. You know, you always talk about how to engage yourself into personal development books, Think and Grow Rich, all these books. All these books are just trying to teach manifestation. They're trying to teach that if, whatever you believe, it'll become, and it'll become in its physical presence. So it's kind of like if you believe that you're inferior and you believe that, you're 19 and you believe that, you're not able to enter into this market, things won't go your way. But when I believed that, I was like, and I had the confidence level of saying that I'm about to be 20 years old, but I think that this is going to be the industry that I can succeed in, and I believed it. Everything starts to happen in the way that you want to. And I think you even said it as far as like when you were talking about the bandit sign situation. Everybody's putting these bandit signs up. Everybody's, putting these Google, these AdWords up. Everybody's putting up Facebook ads. But what separates the people is just who can consistently do them. And somebody may call the other sign, 3 out of the other 10 times, and somebody may call you the other, 3 times, and somebody else the other 3 times. Yep. But it's like if you can just show up. Sometimes the biggest thing you can do is just show up. Other people will fall off.
Absolutely.
While you're consistently sending out your follow-ups, and you're 7 to 8 to 9 to 10 follow-ups in, people already quit at 3.
Yeah.
I that's how I got the lead with the first one is that I followed up with the sister for so long that no other investors were really talking to her anymore. Mm-hmm. I became the primary salesperson. I became the primary focus of who they'll do business with. And another thing too is, people do business with who they like and trust. Mm-hmm. If you can become more of a likable and trustworthy person, it doesn't matter if there's 100 people. If you're the person that they like and they're the person that they want, they're going to do business with you. Mm-hmm. Even if you guys offer the same exact price. It's almost like if we offer the same thing, what everybody else is offering with, what makes them decide who to go do business with is who they like and who they trust. So if you can develop some of those, just the characteristics, the personality, the mindset, there's money to be eaten for all of us. There's enough, money on the table for everybody to really win. And so if you can get away from the scarcity mentality, there's really never an issue. It's just, staying focused and just doing what's in front of you. Do what you can do. Do the steps, and it's a system that's been proven so many times that if you just do the system, it'll work out.
Absolutely, man. And it's such a big thing, like staying top of mind. And it's not that you have to be anyone that you're not, or give some grandiose sales pitch or anything like that, especially when you're talking with motivated sellers out there. A lot of times it's listening to their situation, seeing what's going on, and just very conversationally, very nonchalantly, just kind of mentioning the value that you can bring and kind of painting the picture what that would look like for them, and then periodically just checking back in and staying top of mind. And one of the thing that connects is like bringing some value to this, to them. So sometimes, like you said earlier in this call, like, a lot of times they've never worked with an investor before. They've never sold their property to an investor. So sometimes you just have to very quickly paint that picture of what that would look like. And one of the things I always talk about is there's always a conversation going on in that person's mind. And a lot of times, like when you're calling them or meeting them the first time or whatever, they're wondering like, who in the heck are you? Like, are you just going to lowball me on my house? Or is this a scam? Are you going to take advantage of me? That type of thing. So if you can just kind of, nonchalantly say at the beginning of the conversation and let them know that you are just a local investor and that you're not going to lowball them and that you are going to take care of them, and you have some other houses you're looking at too, so it's no big deal if it doesn't work out, but you just wanted to check in. It's this non-abrasive way to go about it, and it allows you to stay top of mind. So yeah, those are some really important things, man. And I wanted to ask you this because I wasn't sure when you started with me. So for those of you watching, Isaiah got started with my product, the Ultimate Wholesaling Blueprint. And then after going through that, he upgraded to the mentoring and became a mentoring student of mine. And so when you got started, Isaiah, did you have any type of big sales background or real estate background, or were you a real estate agent? Did you have any licensing, anything like that?
I think when I was in high school, I did like some like internet marketing type like MLM stuff, like just like starting out, but not really. I think even kind of how you talked about it, like I'm still like an introvert type of person.
Yeah, me
but
too.
I've been around so much. Like I think and this speaks to everybody who's probably an introvert. Sometimes you just gotta own it. But what I've learned is sometimes I've been in so many environments where I have to get out of my shell, that I've learned how to, manage it. I've learned how to, just, get myself out of those states. So I think probably the hardest thing in the entire business is making phone calls. That was my hardest thing because I was an introvert. I didn't really want to sit there and call people. I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't know what I was going to be saying. I didn't, sometimes when I first started, I would stutter. And it was like a real battle because I was so young. People could probably hear that I was young on the phone. But it's like, if you could just, everything comes with mastery. Every master was once a beginner. So it's like, if you want to become good at marketing, you just got to study and keep mastering it. If you want to become a salesperson, you just got to keep studying it and mastering it. And I think with real estate, it wasn't something that I knew about. It wasn't something that I knew anything about.
Yeah.
It was just something that over time, you just got to keep learning, you got to keep mastering it, and you just got to master yourself.
Absolutely, man. So what I want to do here is, for those of you who are just, checking this YouTube video out, or those of you from Isaiah's audience, maybe you're checking this out because you went through the link on Instagram or you're watching this on YouTube. What I want to do is kind of show you a couple bullet points of Isaiah's story. And for those of you who follow Isaiah, you know this. And for those of you who are just checking out this YouTube channel for the first time, you can kind of see this. And then what I want to do is kind of circle back Isaiah, and because we got some really cool stuff to talk about with your social media kind of following that you've built in the last year, building over 100,000 followers on Instagram, 20,000 subs on YouTube. It's been absolutely incredible. So I want to kind of give you the platform to kind of share that story, man, and I think that'll be inspiring for all of us. I know I'm super excited to hear about that. So for just a split second, man, I know you can probably still see my screen, but I'm going to minimize, since I'm recording this here, minimize our Skype session here with the video. And I'm going to let people here just kind of see the screen. So as you can see, this is Isaiah Ford, obviously 20 years old, from Sacramento, California. He got started with the Ultimate Wholesaling Blueprint a little while back, and then upgraded to become a full-time mentoring student. He closed out this deal this past summer for $17,500. He has another deal right now, and we can even touch on this in a few minutes, in escrow, and another deal under contract. Plus, like, we talked about he's running a full-time 6-figure business. So he's just really doing a lot of cool things, and I'm so glad he took time out to jump on this call. And for those of you who are checking this out for the first time and you don't know who in the world I am, I don't like spending a ton of time talking about myself because, I just don't like that. I don't want to hype up myself. You guys can make the determination if this is valuable or not. But my name is Stephen Howell, and over the last 4 years, I have taught students all over the country the art of real estate investing, specifically wholesaling houses, and how to acquire deeply discounted real estate, even if you have no real estate background license. And one of the things I'm kind of known for is helping people to do things with a very lean and minimal budget. And we focus on larger spread wholesale deals. So like, Isaiah's deal, $17,500. That is very common with the way that I teach how to do this. And a lot of times it's about zigging while everyone else is zagging and having just a little bit of a twist and a little bit of a strategy. So if you guys want more information, I'll mention this at the end, but I'm just going to toss it out right now. You can go to 2 places, and they'll be in the link in the description for this video. Number one, if you have any interest in one-on-one mentoring, you can go over to StephenHowellMentoring.com, and I definitely encourage you to check out the full website there. There's a video of me, and you can also apply beneath that. And what I offer, no strings attached, is a free one-on-one strategy session where we talk for about 30 or 45 minutes about where you're at, what you're struggling with, what you want to accomplish, and exactly, how we can come up with a plan to get there. And basically, I partner up with you for an entire year, and I help you through your first 5 deals. So that is the most personal and intimate access to me possible. So you can apply there. I do have a little bit of availability right now. And for those of you who are watching this, it's about to be tax time. And I know I've had a ton of people reaching out that are talking about, hey, I want to finally, I've been going to free seminars and I have all the value, all the knowledge in the world, but I don't have anyone to hold my hand. This might be something for you, so certainly you can check that out. And then like Isaiah, he started with my product, my video step-by-step wholesaling course that's literally A to Z, and that's also in the link in the description, and you can check that out. So depending on where you're at and what type of personal help you need, either of those options could be a great fit. But just a couple of mercifully brief facts, again, if you're checking this video out for the first time. So I am the creator of one of the #1 videos on YouTube of wholesaling real estate, how to wholesale real estate step by step. It has, at this time, I think over 126,000 views. And I'll just show you here on my channel real quick so you know that I'm telling the truth. 126,000 views here. Definitely encourage you to subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to do daily uploads. Right now I'm averaging about 3 or 4 uploads a week. And here, as we get through tax season and I wrap up a couple projects, it's going to be daily uploads. So a ton of free content and value. For the past 7 years, I've been just all over real estate, marketing, branding. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on courses and programs and coaching and all sorts of things. And I also do some guest posting for realestatemogul.com and REI Tips. They've asked me to come out and kind of teach their communities a little bit. So anyways, that's just a little fun fact about me. But the one-on-one mentoring and the blueprint evolved actually from one-on-one mentoring and so many students asking questions and me just kind of thinking like, oh my gosh, that's a good question. I should record a video. So that's how that kind of organically developed. And that's why, it's so successful and I have such a high success rate at teaching people how to do real estate and stuff. I just want to share you guys as a little bit of social proof, in case you're wondering just a little bit about, a little bit more about me. Here on the screen, I just wanted to share a couple of pics from my wife and I's vacation. We went down to Destin and did some deep sea fishing there in Florida. It was one of our bucket list items. when I finally got my real estate business up and running and rocking, my wife had always wanted to deep sea fish. I always wanted to deep sea fish. So for us to actually go do that, here's a few pictures on my screen of that vacation and of us heading down there on the beach, catching some incredible fish. Here's a couple more images and stuff of us and stuff. So just wanted to share a little bit about that personal side, that like when you do get going in this business, when you get laser focused, it's not that it's going to happen overnight, but like Isaiah shared, he kind of stuck with it and just started doing one thing after the next thing, and the stuff started to compound, and over time he was able to get results. And I just want you guys to see how possible it is. So with that being said, let me flip the screen back up to Isaiah here, and we can kind of continue this interview. But I just think that some of that is helpful to kind of share that journey, with you guys watching this. So Isaiah, man, any thoughts or anything that you want to share, as I was kind of rambling on there for a little bit?
It's kind of like how we discussed. It's like sometimes when things take off or certain things in your life emerge, it's kind of like just to run with it. I think, even if I look at 2 or 3 years back, I don't think necessarily I would know exactly what I would be doing. Mm-hmm. But I did have a vision of where I wanted to be at in my life. So I think, just to encourage and inspire, others, just to have a vision and have a goal in mind, end goal in mind, but, reverse engineer it. Whatever it takes to get there, just know that sometimes it may not always be what you think is going to be to get you to your success or to get to where you need to be. Just have an open mind, be optimistic and be open, and just kind of pivot your way through, these different roadblocks, and just maneuver. And just, when things happen, go with it. If certain parts of your business are getting you all the results, stick with it. If you realize that this type of campaign is really bringing you the results, run with that. And that's what I kind of, been learning with, as far as like managing, like being a barber and doing real estate. I had the big blow up on social media as a barber, and it was something that I just said, let's just continue to run with it. And I still do real estate, and I still continue to push that. It's just you got to learn to just maneuver and keep pushing in ways that is, everybody has their special talent. Everybody has their purpose on this earth. So it's like if you could just keep running with the things that are winning for you, you'll bring massive success to yourself. And the social media thing is something that, when you're young and it's kind of like that's your generational thing. Like that's kind of what I just ran with. A lot of times, I grew up on Instagram. I was a sophomore in high school, I remember, and I didn't know what the impact that it was going to have until I see it now. But it was something that I kind of knew all the ins and outs. As a kid, teenager, you kind of know all the ins and outs of social media at this time. You know how to post, how to do all these little, tech savvy things. And it was just something that I ran with, and it's definitely something that, me and Steve are going to work on together on doing some things with social media. But it's definitely just, 2017 was an exciting year because you just see all these things happening, but, you didn't foresee it. And that's okay. And that's what I'm hoping for in 2018, just to keep winning and keep pushing things and see what happens.
Yeah, man, I'm super proud of you. Like, the things that you've accomplished have been awesome. So I want to touch on the impact, and so one thing I'm going to ask you in just a second, but to give you guys a preview, and then we'll wrap this up, because Isaiah's and my intention here, we don't want to make this terribly long. We want to deliver the meat and not just talk about a ton of random things. But I do want to ask you a little bit, Isaiah, about the social media stuff and also the skills that have been transferable, because one thing that I always talk about with people is that when you build the skills to become a successful real estate investor, a successful wholesaler, and some of the internal battles and the confidence, those skills a lot of times transfer and spill over in every other area of your life. And I know that we've personally talked about that, but I want you to share that in just a second with people of how that's maybe impacted your barber business or vice versa, and then a little bit about the social media. But just to share with people, because I know we gave a little teaser, you do have a couple of deals in the works right now, and then talk a little bit, just for a quick second, about like strategy. Like, was it important for you to have a step-by-step game plan like the blueprint or something like that to follow? Was it important to have a specific strategy like probates and to try to do things a little bit different rather than just doing, all these random things that you're seeing out there? Talk about like your experience of having a step-by-step thing to follow and a strategy like probates or something, and that type of thing. And then maybe about a couple of deals that you have in the works right now, just to give people a little taste.
Yeah. So kind of like the first part of that was, how things bounced off of each other. Definitely it does. Anything you learn can be transferable into a different area in your life. I think with real estate, the one thing that it really taught me is kind of like having self-discipline.
Yeah.
It taught me a discipline that no other business has ever taught me. Because you could be waking up, and who's gonna tell you whether or not you should make those phone calls? Who's gonna as far as being a barber, a client is gonna be the one that demands my time. But a business like real estate is something that you build self-discipline, you build consistency, you build habits that are good for your overall life. You build, a level of just concentration and just focus. Because like you said, there's one thing in the business that you got to focus in all the time. And one thing I learned is that you got to build the foundation and everything else will come. You gotta build the house, and you gotta build the community for people to come. You gotta build the business in order for business to come. And so that's kind of the things that I learned, and it kind of bounced off of each other. Because now when I'm doing, Instagram, I'm learning the consistency pattern. I'm learning that now I gotta post like this each time a day. I gotta engage. I gotta give value. That's all we talk about in real estate is giving value. So I'm like, when I'm on Instagram and I'm on social media, I'm learning how to give value. Mm-hmm. So I've learned all those things from being in real estate, and it really is transferable into everything that I do. I've even took certain things that I learned from barbering and putting it into real estate. I've learned that sometimes people just need to know that you're known for doing something. As a barber, people refer you as being just known to cut hair. People in your real estate business just need to know you for buying houses.
Right.
And so that when people do, it's like marketing. How many times have you seen a Coca-Cola commercial, and then by the time you thought about getting a soda at the store, you decide what soda you want based upon how many times you've been marketed something. Marketing is not always necessarily for somebody to buy something right then and there. It's the setup process. It's for them to market to you, for them to see it a couple of times, and then when you're in need to sell a house, they need to know who to go to. So it's like, if you could be known for something, known for buying houses, that's how you'll create business. People just got to be able to just catch an idea and then be like, oh, I need to sell a house. Okay, I'm gonna go to Steven. I'm gonna go to Isaiah. And so if you can start learning those type of techniques of just giving value and being known for it, those are the things that I kind of learned from just having, doing multiple things. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing you wanted to talk about, what was it?
Just about like with maybe a couple of deals you got going on right now, what's in the works, and how beneficial has it been to like follow a specific lead strategy and go really deep on it, like probates or something else, versus doing like 15 different things and having a step-by-step game plan to go by, as opposed to just looking random things up.
Yeah. So the two deals that one's in escrow and one I have in contract, is really stuff that I've been working on, like previous like follow-ups that have been for months.
Yeah.
And that's what you kind of realize. You realize that sometimes you don't necessarily find deals that are just like, off the bat. Sometimes it could be a deal from that been in the works, or somebody that you've been communicating with 7 months ago. Both of the people that I have are people that I followed up with the first time in May.
Yeah.
Of last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. You got to learn that the system is just a follow-up system. You never necessarily get business the first time. you build yourself to business. You build your follow up. You follow up with these guys maybe 11 to 15, and keep track. That's the best thing, is to keep track of how many times you follow up. And that's the system that I learned, is that everything that you do, you have to have a certain system. And so when I was able to just, when you taught us how to write in our little notebooks of how many follow-ups we did, and the call sheet, and, keeping track. I even have like the little spreadsheet where like I'm, track, when the last time I talked to somebody,
Yeah.
what we talked about, and what status they're on. And so I did that with all these leads, so that I'm able to follow up with them. I'm able to use that system. And from taking the wholesaling course, it was like it was a great system, because probate is one of the best things that is in real estate as far as wholesaling too, because it's people are motivated. People don't have an attachment to the property. You talk to people all the time, and some people, you'll always get those people who heckle you about lowballing and stuff like that. But it's almost like you already knew that they weren't going to be business with you in the first place, so you just kind of just plant that seed and let it be what it is. But when you find that person that's motivated, they have all the signs. And so I was able to just kind of use the course to just create my own system. And there's even things that I may have that may have not been a high factor that I used as my campaign. Like, one of the things was the Facebook ads.
Yeah.
It was something that it wasn't like really highlighted in the course, but I was like, okay, I can do that because I kind of know how to use social media.
Right.
And
yeah.
so,
You put your own spin on certain things. Absolutely.
And so I was able to use that course and kind of integrate my own little ideas and things, and something that was very effective for me, because one of them was one that I have in escrow was from a Facebook ad.
That's incredible. That's awesome, man.
So it's like that you just got to learn that whatever and kind of take your strengths too. Take your strengths and integrate things like, if you're really good at Google AdWords, or that's really intriguing to you, or bandit signs or something that you can really focus on, run with it. It's kind of like there's all these different models that work. It's just find out what works for you and integrate them really well, and just know what your main stream is. Probates is your main, your main niche.
Absolutely. So how many hours a week are you like working because you're doing this really part-time. So and that's the beautiful thing about this business is, somebody can work 50 hours a week on wholesaling, or 30 or 20, or like you have a full-time other 6-figure business, which, man, I definitely want to give you, room to talk about that too, man. But like, so how many hours are you focusing on real estate? And then if you don't mind sharing, what are the size of those 2 deals that you're working on?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So basically, how I structure my kind of like my life and stuff like that. So I'm working in the shop full time. I'm also actually coming out with a barber course that's going to be similar to the way Steven, you've done yours. So it's kind of like, that's actually a great thing that me just, being a student of yours, I was able to see some ideas that I'm able to be like, okay, I can do. I see some resemblance in the industry that I have in, barbering. Let me kind of take some of that, inspiration and leadership in the industry and kind of teach others. So it's kind of like, an idea that I had, and I'm actually finishing up my last part of the course today.
That's awesome.
But I was able to say, okay, you know what? I want to work on this. I want to work on, the real estate thing. So what I basically do is, every Monday, today is I spend maybe, 4 or 5 hours just working on the progress of the real estate. I follow up with each person that I have. I grab some leads, and I make some phone calls to some attorneys. I send out emails, and then I have some other systems where I curated where I can just send out mailing from I forgot what the website's called. I think it's like big direct mail, I think it is, where you can just have it automated sent out already. Yeah. So it's something that I just pay for. And then one of the things that I've been focusing on is just direct mail marketing, because I realized that I don't have a lot of time. time is something that's very like of essence to me. So,
Mhm.
but I want to keep pushing with real estate. So each month I just put like $100, away to just put into direct mail marketing, and something that's just small. And I get phone calls here and there, and it's something that I want to push, as slow as possible. But I know that I'm going to get results because I want to keep that pushing. It's like
Absolutely.
I'm trying to do everything that I do just slow and just not overly get into each type of business that I'm doing.
Yeah, that's incredible. So you're working your barbering business pretty much, you absolutely full time all week, and then on Mondays when you have your off day, you're doing 4 or 5 hours of real estate. So that's just, man, that's awesome. And yeah, so Isaiah and I have been talking about, he's coming out with a barbering course. He's built a 6-figure business, absolutely crushing it in that world, and so that's one of the things that we've developed this relationship. And let's say, hey, I don't have this massive, presence on social media yet. That's definitely coming, but and he does, and I have a lot of experience, building courses and educating and teaching. So there's just so many different relationships, and that's something I love about this business. That there's collaborations and all sorts of things that can happen and stuff. So. Man, I have to ask you. So you have, if I'm not mistaken, you have 108,000 followers at the time of this recording on Instagram, around 20,000 subs on YouTube. So just as a little teaser for everyone, like, let us know, like, what's like a tip that you could give somebody who's interested, because I'm sure almost anyone watching this video has some level of interest in potentially having a little bit greater exposure on social media for their business. Maybe it's a personal brand, maybe it's their real estate business, maybe it's their barbering business. What's one tip that you think would be a good tip to grow your social media, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube, that people can implement?
I think it's kind of like the simple formula is kind of figure out what value you can give to the masses, uh, and post consistently,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and figure out kind of like unlock the algorithm to each like social media platform, because I realized that every like social media platform has an algorithm. you know they cater towards YouTube catered towards more instructional tutorial videos, and the longer the video gets, the less views it can get. So you got to learn how to condense it into an average of like 5 to 10 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instagram is you get 1 minute videos and you get pictures. Videos most of the time get more viral than pictures because they're able to be on the explore page. People are able to click on them and people are able to view them. So it's like figure out what value you give. Figure out what value you can give to the masses, and then kind of crack the code on the algorithm. Figure out what system works. Which platform you're trying to be on, and every social media platform has a different algorithm. Everybody likes different stuff. Instagram likes lifestyle stuff, and YouTube likes more of like instructional, moderate, lifestyle stuff. It's
Yeah.
like Instagram is so daily that you kind of have to be kind of showing them your in depth of your life. You kind of have to engage with them daily. You kind of have to post on your story. So it's just you got to figure out what you give value in, and then post consistently, and then kind of just figure out how you can crack the code to each platform, because every platform is different.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Well, I want to end with two questions, and then we'll tell you guys how to follow each of us on here. And appreciate you guys for if you're sticking on this video. We're going at probably 45 minutes or an hour right now. This has been so much fun. I hope you guys have got a lot of value out of this. Before we go, Isaiah, what has been your motivating why? What's that factor that's allowed you to push through any trials or difficulties, whether in your barbering business or in real estate, trying to get that first deal, those first few months of laying the foundation, of building that house? What's your why? What's your motivational factor that allowed you to get through that?
That's a great question, because I was just thinking about that question the other day. 'Cause somebody asked me that. The biggest thing, my biggest drive, my biggest why is probably where I come from. Just knowing that, I wasn't the studious person in high school. I was probably the C student, and I would like struggle through the term of like a D plus, and then I'd get it up to a C minus. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was me as a student, and I think it was not a test. It wasn't necessarily a great example of who I really was. And I think certain people that knew me back then would be like, wow, you know, I'm more successful than they ever thought I would be. But it wasn't necessarily that. It was just the fact that it wasn't my lane. And more you can find and be in tune with yourself and discover yourself is the more that you can see the results in your outward, you know, your life. And so I think my biggest drive is just knowing that I may have been an average person growing up. I may have been these certain things, but when I found my talents and I found my why and I found my purpose, now I'm really driven to just keep pushing forward and see how far this can go.
That's incredible, man. That's awesome. So I'm going to end with one final question here in just 1 second. But again, guys, I want to thank you for coming out. You'll be able to see Isaiah's Instagram in the description below this video. Also, the link to his YouTube channel. Definitely be sure to follow him. He posts a lot of great content, super inspiring. And for those of you who are watching this video, and again, you want to kind of get things kicked up in high gear, there's 2 ways that I can personally help you. Number 1 is you can check out the Ultimate Wholesaling Blueprint. That's what Isaiah went through. And then a lot of times my customers who go through that will upgrade to the one-on-one mentoring. So the link to the blueprint, and I've put together 4 really powerful bonuses. You can click the link below this video to check that out, see all the details, what's included, what you're getting. I don't want to take a ton of time on this video to talk about that, but that's one of the best places you could start. And then if you want to take things to the extreme hand-holding level, I do have a few spots in my one-on-one mentoring, and you can head over here to Stephen Howell Mentoring, and right when you go to the page, I'll pause the video. There's a video that's going to play.
All right.
And you can fill out the application, and I offer a free one-on-one strategy call. And then you'll also be subscribed to my email newsletter, which I give a ton of free, powerful content as well, even if you don't decide to become a mentoring student. So I promise I'm not just going to be hounding you to, buy. I do lead with a ton of value, and regardless, I've had countless people come on and be like, man, I've done my first deal just off of your free content alone. So those are the 2 ways that you can kind of get started rocking and rolling with me. Be sure to also subscribe to the YouTube channel here as well, because like I said, I'm coming out with a ton of great content. But yeah, man, I want to pass it over to you, Isaiah, with one final question here, man. So if you had an aspiring real estate investor, brand new wholesaler, maybe they're experienced, maybe they're brand new, or just an entrepreneur, maybe they want to get into barbering and kind of follow in your footsteps, and they can't seem to get anything working, like they just can't seem to get any traction, and maybe they've tried a few things, maybe they have invested into a course, maybe they've gone to a seminar, maybe they've gone to a couple of like barbering battles and stuff like that. They're inspired, but like they just don't know where to start. They're spinning their wheels. What would you say to him or her that's kind of going through that experience right now?
Just accept what you don't know, and just kind of like have that debrief of just, sometimes what I do is just I'll write down on a piece of paper what I don't know about this business. What do I need to know more of? And just kind of just seek more knowledge. Keep trying to like learn. We talked about how, Steve was telling me about how he spent years on learning about marketing, informational product. Spent time learning about real estate business. And when you spend those times learning it, you become more comfortable with doing it. And then you just got to go out there and practice it. It's not like you're never gonna be perfect. You're not gonna. There's like this battle of just like making mistakes through the whole process. I still make mistakes through every business that I do now. It's like I'm never gonna reach perfection, but striving for perfection, you'll land on excellence. You'll land on greatness. So it's like if you can just keep striving to just apply yourself and to just keep learning, everything is going to happen for you. It's not like a thing that you can just stamp on and just be like, okay, I finally made it. I've known everything. There's never that there's never that epiphany moment of where you can just be like, okay, now I got it, I made it. It's that whole process of trial and error. There's still things that I have not seen yet, and that I'm gonna have to trial and error with. And so if you continue to just have that mindset of just go out there and just trial and error, make mistakes, own them, and feel comfortable, and another thing is like it's just having the mindset of just like not necessarily being nonchalant, but just it's like just oozing with confidence when you talk about it's just like you may not if you could just go and put your best foot forward and just have the confidence, and when you make the mistake, just own it and just move on and brush it off. Brushing it off is probably the best thing that you could probably have as a mindset when you're an entrepreneur, because there's going to be so many brutal things that you may hear from people, so many things that, these obstacles that you get, especially one of the biggest things that I have to deal with social media wise being a barber is the fact that there's so many eyes watching that there's a lot of criticism. Yeah. There's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of negative comments. There's a lot of negative things about me. And it's not that I'm a bad person. It's just that's what happens when you start winning more. More and more people are going to have more eyes on you. More and more people are going to have opinions. And that's okay. You got to learn to not try to control it. You got to learn to let these outside forces be what they are and just learn to control yourself and learn how to move forward and brush it off with a nonchalant attitude. It's just being optimistic and not letting things affect you. So that's my biggest thing I could say as far as like getting started is just dive in. Like really just dive in, really 10 toes down, just really dive into what you're doing. And eventually you'll see results, and there's going to be a whole bunch of blemishes along the way. I didn't get anything that I ever earned without blemishes. Each time I probably walked out with a whole bunch of scratches. And and that's just the fight of being an entrepreneur. But that should also bring the excitement. That's what brings my most excitement, knowing that I've been through so much, and now I'm able to just give all these, the struggles and the pains and the things that I overcome to other people. Yeah. And you should have the same attitude that I'm going to get through this so other people can get through it as well.
That's super inspiring, Isaiah, man. I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate your time too today and jumping on here, man, and talking. It's been so much fun. So guys, again, make sure to go follow Isaiah. He's 20 years old. He is a barber out in Sacramento, California, full-time business, killing it, 6 figures. He just talked about how he did his first $17,500 deal, has 2 more in the works. He had no real estate license or background or super sales experience. And I agree with what you're saying, man. Like we've talked about, like naturally you tend to be more of an introvert, and believe it or not, I do too. But it's that ability to just act in spite of fear, to be able to just be like, you know what? I can't tell you how many situations when I've either been on a phone call or in person or whatever, where it's like people who know me like personally, like I can be like a goofball, I can be a little weird, a little awkward, but you just kind of like own it and you embrace it, and you're like, who cares if I look silly? Who cares if I look stupid? It's not going to be perfect. But people, they don't mind that vulnerability, that authenticity, because so many people are trying to fake it and be this perfection level, and it's unattainable. But if you, like you said, if you could just put your best foot forward, keep moving, amazing things can happen. So man, that's all I have planned for this. I hope you guys here on YouTube or wherever you're watching this got a ton of value. Please be sure to comment below, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. More of these coming up, and that's all, guys. So thank you so much.
Yep, I appreciate everybody for watching, and I guess follow me on social media, Zay the Barber. You can find me on Instagram and YouTube.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, I'll hit you up here soon. Great stuff, and I'll talk to you soon, okay?